Jeremy Saltan, Yamina, Shalom.
Shalom. How you doing, Yoni?
So we've been seeing the protests in the streets and the feeling and the complaints and the claim that Bennett is basically going against his voters. Tell us what you see, what we're hearing these days.
Oh, what I see is there are people who are for it and people who are against it. Now, obviously, this is something that I don't think any of us really expected, that this would be the final outcome, but it became a choice between this and a fifth election. And there really is no third alternative here. It's either doing this or another election. What I ask people who are against the plan is to say, what are you afraid of? What are your fears? What's very important for people to know, and I know at this point everyone's looking at all the leaks and various things from various journalists. All of the agreements that were agreed upon are going to be released in full transparency 24 hours before the vote. Everyone will have enough time to go ahead and look at it. And any single thing that's not in that agreement that people are afraid of, we have veto power over. So we'll have the power to be able to stop anything that's not written there.
And when you hear people who say, listen, thanks to Bennett, the left is coming back to control in the country.
So I asked them, do they want us to go to another election? Every single poll that I see, if we go to a fifth election, we're going to go to a sixth election, and that's in the good case scenario. In the bad case scenario, because of the splintering of the right, between Bennett and Saar and Lieberman and Smotrich and the Likud and the Haredi parties, let's be honest, on the left, they're very much unified. If we go into another election, the best case scenario is we have a sixth election. The worst case scenario is that you have a left-wing government without any need for Bennett, Saar, or anybody else, and then we'll be in a much worse place.
Throughout the weeks of the campaign before this elections, it was kind of obvious to anyone who listened to Bennett that this was one of the scenarios. He promised that he will not leave the right and he will join Netanyahu if there's 61, but it was obvious that if there's not 61, he'll look into other options. What happened at the end with all these videos that we're seeing of Bennett saying, in no way will I be with Lapid? Do you think it was a mistake of the campaign?
I think it was very clear to most people who paid attention throughout the entire campaign that we had two central campaign promises. One was for Naftali Bennett to be prime minister of the state of Israel, and the second one was to avoid a fifth election. Those were the two things that we said in every single parlor meeting. And as I'm sure you know, when you get into a lot of these meetings or rallies, you end up having the follow-up questions. Well, how are you going to accomplish those two things? And, those are when he, in various points said various things in terms of Lapid and otherwise. But those were, if you will, secondary campaign promises to the primary ones, which were for Bennett to be prime minister and to avoid a fifth election. And that's what we're doing with the formation of this government. And that is also why you don't have the entire faction and our entire voter base against this.
So what kind of days of government, the 100 first days of the government, do you think it will be seeing?
Well, again, I think there's a lot of good things for our constituency and for other constituencies that are in the coalition agreements. Pretty much as you can expect, we're going to all hit the ground running and try to accomplish as much as we can in terms of what's there within the agreements. And then once we get past that, we can get into the point of dealing with other issues. And like I said, with this veto power, where both the right and the left can block any initiative that the other one doesn't like, everything will have to be done through consensus. So I believe a majority of the things that we're going to be able to do are going to be up front.
And there's also a very positive and important and significant term that is being used these days is the word unity. Maybe having all parts of society feel part of this new government.
I don't think that's a maybe. I think that's a for sure. This is the first time in Israel's history that we're going to have a true unity government, where all segments of the Israeli population are going to be represented. For sure, we had certain ones that might have had even over 100 MKs back in the day if you're looking at the Six-Day War. But this is the first time that you have one that's going to be represented by the right and the left, by religious and secular, by immigrants such as ourselves, and veteran Israelis, and yes, also Jews and Arabs. This is a very, very different thing compared to what we've seen.
Hundreds of thousands of Israelis will feel not represented. I'm talking about the voters of the Likud, 30 mandates. Do you think that the next stage we will see them, maybe after Netanyahu's era, joining this big government?
I can't speak to what's going to happen in the post-Netanyahu period. I think there are many different scenarios, and we're not there yet. Netanyahu was chosen by the Likud. to lead them for the entire Knesset term, unless he chooses from his own free will to go ahead and leave that position, which I do not expect that he will serve as the opposition leader. What happens after he leaves? I really think that all the options are open. But like I said, I don't see that becoming something that we're going to be talking about, certainly not over the next year or so.
Okay, Jeremy Saltan, Yamina, thank you very much.
Thank you, Yoni.